Ya Pido. Pagunte Hodashana. I welcome you in my traditional language of the Assiniboine Sioux people from the Fort Peck Indian Reservation in northeastern Montana. What I basically said was, welcome relatives. We want to start this off in a really good way. So that's in our traditional ways. I would like to take a brief moment of reflection as we think about our ancestors who jeopardized their lives in the boarding schools in North America and Canada and the US. So if we'll just take a quick moment of just reflection, because I wouldn't be standing here today without the sacrifices that our relatives gave us to be here today. Thank you, appreciate that. We're open for an exciting opportunity today to hear from an amazing and inspiring young lady. But before we go there, I have the opportunity to tell you a little bit about the work I do. My given name is Sam McCracken. I'm the general manager and visionary of a brand at Nike called N7. As I'll take you a little bit on my journey, first I would like to start off with telling you what is N7. N7 for the N stands for Nike or Native. And the 7 really starts with the belief and ethos we have as Indigenous people that reads, in every deliberation, we must consider the impact of our decisions on 7 generations. So everything we do for future generations. So we hopefully leave our Mother Earth in a better place for the next generation and the generations after that. And I based my work that I do at a multinational brand like Nike based on that. What I will tell you is I started my career early on unloading containers in the warehouse. And I had an idea and a plan how I can give back to my community, since I had a very unique opportunity to work with such a powerful brand. So I presented the opportunity for no rhyme, reason, or purpose. The company believed in the individual, myself, Sam McCracken. And they gave me the opportunity to make a unique connection with our Indigenous communities. And through that unique connection, really started the work we call now Nike N7. We do it through a philanthropic effort, and we do it through a brand effort. And so with those two things, I'll take you through a little bit of that. In early 2005, I started my foundation. The company has made a contribution to my foundation. We've affected the lives of over 500,000 kids. The mission of our work is really to inspire and enable 1.5 million Indigenous youth in North America through the power of sport. And you see a shining example of that through one of the nonprofits that we contribute to called the Notabegay III Foundation, who really works very diligently in our communities to address health disparities that happen in our communities. As we jump forward, we really try to lay the platform and use that megaphone called the Nike brand to elevate our stories from the margins to the mainstream. I will share with you that we are one of the most invisible communities in the United States. People forget that we are here, we are thriving, we have been through many generations of historical trauma that we'll deal with. So with that, I just wanted to share just a little bit about what I do. But we're not here to hear about what I do. We're here about an amazing entrepreneur who started her career and was giving that passion from our elders. So without further ado, I'm going to allow our featured guest today to talk to you, Mikaela Jade from Indigenous. Thank you.
Warami. Thank you so much, my brother, for sharing a piece of your story, and it was very important to me, and I really appreciate that you were able to be here with me together as my First Nations brother, so thank you, Sam. My name is Mikaela Jade. I'm a Cabrogal woman from the Darug-speaking nations of Sydney, and I had a vision in 2012 that changed my life. I was a park ranger, so someone that was working on the national parks, encouraging visitors to come and see our beautiful places, but also being very upset that when people came to our beautiful places, that there was a metal sign standing in front of a 60,000-year-old cultural site only telling you how old that place was. In 2012, my vision was, imagine we could go to our cultural places and our elders would appear in front of you in 3D holographic format and tell you the right story at the right time, at the right place, for the right reason, in the right language. And imagine that we could build a business model around that. That would be transformative for our people who spend so much time sharing our cultural knowledge, language, and law with people that are not from our culture, while we want to spend time with our young generation, teaching them our tongue and our knowledge. My vision asked a lot of me. It asked me to do 3 things that felt simply impossible at the time. The first one was to discover who I was. I was disconnected from my culture because of the stolen generations in Australia, where our children were forcibly removed by governments to be put into servitude. My family descend from that. So I grew up not knowing who my cultural people were. The second thing that it was asking me to do was work out, how do you program a hologram? And how do you do that in 2012 when really none of the technology existed to do that? And how do you do that when you don't have any digital skills? The third thing that it was asking me to do was to build a model that could support our people financially around this crazy idea. And that model had to be a model that both gave economic empowerment to our people and fulfilled our ambition for intergenerational wealth creation. And that model wasn't really accepted in 2012. It's now known as social entrepreneurship. So you can see here, I'm on country here wearing a HoloLens, which enables you to view digital content that's spatially aware. And we wanted to enable people to walk on Aboriginal lands in Aboriginal places and have this experience of hearing directly from our elders. So those 3 things were quite impossible, but I couldn't let go of this dream. It kept coming to me when I was trying to sleep, and it just wanted to be born. But I didn't have any money at the time to create my first application. So remember, this is 2012. I needed $500,000 Australian dollars, but I didn't let that deter me. I started a company while I was a park ranger, and I was like, this is just going to be my side hustle until I raise the funds. And eventually, after many applications, I had secured a $25,000 grant. So when you need $500,000 and you only get $25,000, it's almost as good as getting nothing, right? So I had a little bit of money. I still had my park ranger salary, which enabled me a budget of about $100 a week to add to that. The other problem was, I mentioned I didn't have any digital skills. I had to find someone who wanted to work with me. I couldn't find anyone in Australia. I was laughed at and ridiculed. I had people tell me that Aboriginal people don't use technology. I had people tell me that, quite simply, I was high-risk investment because I was female, I was Indigenous, I was working in cutting-edge technologies from remote communities, and I wanted to do this without internet connectivity. Eventually, I found one man who would help me, and his name was Jason Higgins, and he operates a business out of Biggleswade in the UK. So, I think I wouldn't be able to be standing here unless Jason had said yes to this crazy woman calling him after I had stalked the entire world on LinkedIn to find out people that had skills in this area, if they would help me. So I would go and be a park ranger during the day on this beautiful country, and I would come home, feed my family, put the kids to bed, and get on Skype at 11 o'clock at night and learn what Jason talked to me about as the dark arts of augmented reality. He taught me image recognition technologies. He taught me user experience and application development. And he taught me how to attach digital content to the physical world. We were building the metaverse. I wish that I had a word for it back then. So we got to making content, and I was just so privileged with the community that I was living with, that the women saw the technology and they said, yes, we want to share our culture in this way. And the first thing that we did was create a scan of a pandanus nut, which is associated with weaving baskets. And we filmed the women creating the whole process of weaving baskets. And we chose that because I was standing in the National Park Visitor Centre one day, and I heard a visitor pick up a basket and question why it was $200. And I was like, hang on a minute, that's $5 an hour to make that basket. So I wanted to show people the effort that goes into making these baskets so they could understand why it was $200 for a small basket. So I went and scanned everything, and I needed my dream to get bigger because our cultural sites were bigger, and I needed to become a commercial drone pilot to be able to fly a drone and map all our cultural places for the image recognition technology. So I became a commercial drone pilot. I think I might have been the first Indigenous female drone pilot in Australia. And not only did I want to get myself qualified, I was able to secure funding to get a number of the other Indigenous National Park rangers certified in drone mapping, which they use today to map weeds and feral animals and do amazing things with AI. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. But when you go bigger, you need more money. And I was back to square one with this number. This number, 0.007%, is the share of the First Nations Indigenous women in technology venture capital. So if that's a rounding error, our women have literally no chance of securing funding for our ventures. I wasn't going to let this deter me though, because my daughters, Amy and Jasmine, were watching me. And I might come into a world where that is the number of that is the percentage of chance I have at securing venture capital, but I'm not going to leave this world like that. I'm going to make sure that we move that number where the 7 is far further to the left. So, I mentioned that I'm a Cabral woman. My people come from the Georges River and the Liverpool areas of the Sydney Basin. And you can see here that this is the kind of ochres that we wear on our face. I had to find my connection to my country and my people. And I'm ever so grateful that my elders were able to find me and I was able to find them. And for the last 14 years, I've dedicated my life to my people, learning my language so I can pass it to my children, learning our cultural practices, learning about our country, empowering our mob to come together on new projects that use technology. That's really exciting. I'm very excited about the projects we get to do on country with our people. The other people in this shot are some of my amazing team at InDigital. We now employ 12 people in the company, working with First Nations communities across Australia. And 70% of our team are Indigenous and 70% of our team are female. And I'm really proud that we are bucking the trend in the technology sector, particularly around metaverse bridging technologies, that we get to lead in this space. This is Uncle Neville Namanyuk. He's one of the first people that trusted me with cultural knowledge to create this augmented reality storytelling. We worked together, and in 2014, after 18 months of trying to get the technology to work without the internet on country, we succeeded. And I was invited to go and share this story at the United Nations in New York. And I went there and demoed the product to hundreds of First Nations people from across the world. And people got really, really excited. And I got incredibly overwhelmed. I realized I'd created a monster. And it relied on me at the center of the product for it to expand. And you can't do that. I couldn't be responsible for holding everyone's cultural knowledge, their language, their laws. And the reason that they were putting it in the technology in the first place was to enable intergenerational sharing forevermore into their communities. So I almost quit. I was driving to a presentation in Sydney, and I told my daughter that I have to stop the company. I can't afford this technology anymore. It was costing $10,000 every 90 seconds of content. I realised that our people have an 80,000 years old way of sharing our knowledge, language and law. That's free. So why would we create these holograms? And my daughter turned around to me and looked me blankly in the face, and she said, "We have given up so much for you to pursue this dream, and I am going to take over your company, so you are not quitting." It was lucky that Amy pushed me to that meeting, because a wonderful elder in Sydney, Uncle Marcus Hughes, who is the ultimate weaver, who had been following my journey, saw that I was on the knife edge of something amazing, and he introduced me to his friend Tianti Dickens at Microsoft. And she believed in me and my idea, and she said, "How can Microsoft help you?" And I said, "I know that you have this HoloLens thing, and I'd really like to see that." So I was invited into Microsoft to look at the HoloLens, and the man that was running the HoloLens program, Lawrence, gave me a challenge. He said, "I like what's in your app, but if you can put that in our HoloLens in 3 weeks' time, I will platform you at the Ignite conference in Sydney." And I didn't know how to program a HoloLens. I'd been working with developers in India on my app because I couldn't find any talent in Australia. And so within 48 hours, I got myself a visa, and I got myself a plane ticket, and I got myself to India. And we sat there for 6 days working out how to program holograms into this new device that none of us had ever seen. And I came back and I gave it to him a week before the conference and said, "Here it is." And he honoured his promise, and I got to platform this at Microsoft Ignite in Sydney. And then I saw the potential of what we were creating. I was really worried though when Microsoft approached me to partner. I'm just a small company, and they're one of the largest companies in the world, and it was a dream to be asked to partner with such a huge corporation, but I had a perceived power imbalance in that relationship. All of the what ifs came into my mind, like, what if this doesn't work? Like, I'm powerless in this relationship. But I really needn't have worried about that, because we have so much strength as Indigenous people. 80,000 years of all the things that have happened to our people, we are still here, we are still innovating, we are still pushing the boundaries. We're working in holographic technologies. And they have been nothing but respectful, and it has been such an incredible experience to work with such a large corporation who puts the complete trust in the design and the direction of the program and the app and the platform that we've developed into our vision. This is Uncle Don Rowlands. He's a Wangkanguru Yalyani traditional owner and very respected elder in the very central of the Queensland and a desert in Birdsville. And he put the HoloLens on earlier this year, and he said, "Finally, the technology has caught up with the way that First Nations people can see the world." And he goes, "I can use this device to light up this desert country, to show other people the way that I see this land, to show our song lines, to show our knowledge that is born from these sands and from our plants and rocks and the footsteps of all our ancestors." And that is transformative. I think people want to come to places and have authenticity in storytelling. I think they want to have a common understanding from the oldest cultures, the oldest living cultures in the world, around what we have to share. And I think we have tremendous opportunities to help design and build a metaverse that is inclusive, that is safe, that is respectful, and that shares our commonality, which is humanity. This is another wonderful elder, Annie Bessie Coleman, who asked some really important questions when we were designing this application. She said, "Mikaela, what are we building these holograms for? Is it for entertainment or is it for education? And what are we bringing our people into this holographic format to do? And what happens when we pass away?" That got me thinking a lot about Indigenous cultural intellectual property and moral rights in metaverse-type technologies and the metaverse eventually. What is our cultural authority to bring our language and our knowledge and our laws into these spaces? And how do we manage it? And who gets to monetize that? I've been having lots of conversations internationally with people that have scanned our cultural objects into 3D virtual reality experiences, who then upload them onto third-party platforms and are getting $30 a download for our cultural content without our permission, without our knowledge. Some of these are very sacred objects. Some of these are scans of our dead ancestors. We like to work together with everybody to prevent this kind of thing happening with future technologies. So this is our application. It's called In Digital Storytelling. What we do is work with traditional owner groups across Australia, which there are more than 300 nations of traditional owner groups across Australia. And we sit down with our elders and we go through the cultural protocols that they want to see for their knowledge and their language and their law expressed in augmented and mixed reality. We then co-design a program for all the schools that are in that country around a story. It can be a creation story, of which we're very famous for in Australia. It can be a personal story of what it was like to be moved onto a mission and what life was like for our people and my mother's generation, who were not even considered as human beings in our country until 1967. It can be any story our elders like. So we get the story. We then translate it into the local language with the elders. Then we create, on our learning management system, an entire program that teaches teachers how to teach our cultural knowledge, language and law, and how to teach the digital skills so the kids can create their own interpretation of what they've heard shared from our traditional owners. And this is an example of a kid that has created an echidna from an echidna story. We use a number of basic softwares in this to create the 3D characters. We then move the kids into Minecraft Education, where they learn how to create, in Minecraft Education Edition, the entire landscape of the story that they've heard. They code elders into the game, and then they become game builders within the game itself as well. We want to teach our kids, don't just consume the technology, start creating with it and in it. You can be game developers, you can be 3D content creators. There is going to be the most astronomical opportunity for authentic content in the metaverse, so we're starting to train them now. We then move into oral language and oral history recording with language. So the investment that Microsoft and my company and Telstra Purple have created is this platform to get rid of all that coding, to get rid of that $10,000 that was required to make augmented reality, and to empower our mob to create this content ourselves. We've had thousands of kids go through the program across Australia, and it's transforming them because we hear things from kids like, I didn't know I had engineering in my brain, but now I have a word for what that is, and now that they have the word, they have the pathway to that career. We have kids that want to be mechatronics engineers, just through creating a simple hologram, because they feel empowered by their ability to do something that seems so out of reach and so cutting edge. The teachers are getting on board and are becoming huge advocates for the program. This is Sam Ephraim. She's recently nominated for Australia's Prime Minister's Award for Teaching for her work through this program. And this is Rory Chapman. He's our CTO and works a lot on the technology backside. He's a Wiradjuri man. These are the kids in one of the most remote schools in Australia experiencing the HoloLens 2 for the first time. And you can see the smiles and the interaction that's happening in the classroom. And the teacher that's with them is an emerging elder, Thiwi. She works in our company and she gets so much from sharing her cultural knowledge, language and law. I promised to talk about ancient wisdom. These are some of the faces of some of the elders that have been absolutely transformative in supporting our program. I cannot do this work without the support of our incredible elders. They drive this program. They want the opportunities for our young people to enter into careers that do not yet exist. They do not want our young people going and changing tyres on trucks or becoming diesel mechanics. They want them to be the creators of the future. And I'm just so grateful, particularly to Auntie Julie Jones, who gave me so much cultural hope to stand on the stage in front of you today. They want to share something with you, and it is that as Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people and First Nations people across the world, of which there are more than 400 million of us, we're not the only people with ancestors. Every person in this room has ancestors. Every person in this room had people before them that thought of you. And you have the opportunity to become a great ancestor yourselves for your descendants who will look back at you in maybe 10 years, in maybe 100 years, and they will be inspired by what you do with your lives today. So I urge you, think about the decisions that you make, like what Sam has said this morning already. Think about the next 7 generations. And for me, that'll be the year 2170. I'm thinking about what my descendants will think of the work that we do today in 2170. Thank you.
Wow. Absolutely. Wow. I get emotional just hearing her story.
Stop it, you.
But we have a few minutes for questions. I don't have 100 questions for her, but I get to spend a lot of time with her because we're connected. Thank you to the Schwab Foundation for allowing 2 Indigenous people to stand on a stage in front of all of you the first time ever. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Fire away.
Yes.
Thank you, Mikaela, for bringing this forward. I wanted to understand, what are your critical barriers today? What kind of growth model do you foresee for this very necessary industry to exist? Because you are like paving pathways for others to follow in this industry. So what's your growth plan, and what are the barriers that you would like to remove if you have the power of investors behind you?
Yes, thank you. That's a fantastic question. So I mentioned there's 300 nations of people in Australia. We all have individual languages, cultural knowledge systems, law. But we have 400 million First Nations people across the world who don't have access to a digital future right now because of connectivity and all the basic necessities of being able to work in metaverse type technologies. However, we can employ people at scale. We have built a scalable model that allows us to employ people on country, and I'm very excited to have been speaking to Jos earlier today about how to look at his model to improve that. But if we had funding, we can employ more people. Like, we can employ hundreds of people to do this work on country if we have the right investment mix. I've bootstrapped this company the entire way, not because I wanted to. I've done it because it needed to be born and it needed to come to life, and we need to close the digital skills gap because 9 out of 10 jobs right now require technology skills, and our people are so far behind in being able to access the ability to get jobs, and I know that that's only going to further widen. So we have the skill, we have the technology, we have the scalable platforms, but we don't have the investors. And I can't tell you how difficult it is as a female Indigenous technology entrepreneur to be able to go to a venture capitalist and say, we need real cash to scale what we have. Yeah. I hope that answered your question.
Well, I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
I got the sign. But thank you guys. Amazing story.
Thank you.
Amazing sister here.
Thank you.
We are connected for life. And we are honored, and we invite you back if you want to come back to see the rest of the social entrepreneurs this evening at 5:45. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you
Thank
in this
you.
room.